Hello students, welcome to Smart Solution. I am Nikhil and today we will start with our standard 8 geography class. So we will start with chapter 2, that is land, soil, water, natural vegetation and wildlife resources. Okay, so for previous, that is chapter number 1, you can visit our channel and check out the link for the same, right? So today we are starting with the second chapter. Okay, so to begin with, we have a story over here. So let us start with that. In a small village in Tanzania, Africa, Mamba gets up very early in the morning to fetch water. She has to walk a long way and return after a few hours. She then helps her mother in house and joins her brother in taking care of their goods. So there is a small town or village in Tanzania, Africa, where Mamba lives. So what are the activities of this Mamba? So she gets up in the morning and she has to walk a long distance to get water for their household activities. After bringing water from a far distance, she helps her mother in household activities and also then helps her brother in taking care of their goats. So basically, if you see, Mamba's family, they are engaged in goat rearing activities. So all her family owns is a piece of rocky land around their small hut. Also, in addition to goats, they have got a small piece of land which is close to their hut. Mamba's father can barely grow some maize and beans on it. After toiling hard, this is not enough to feed their family for the whole year. And as you can see, the piece of land is very small where Mamba's father is busy doing agricultural activities. So his father grows some maize and beans on this land, and the product, that is the final maize or beans that they grow from this farm, they are not enough to feed their family for the whole year, right? So this was the story of a Mamba who lives in a small village in Tanzania, that is Africa. So we also have a story of Peter, and he is from New Zealand. So let us see what the story says. Peter lives in a heart of sheep rearing region in New Zealand where his family runs a wool processing factory. So Peter lives in New Zealand and they have a wool processing factory installed. So basically what they does, they rear sheeps, and as we know that we get wool from sheep. So rearing these sheeps, Peter's family, they get wool from the sheeps and they do process the wool that is received from the sheeps. Okay, so you can see that Peter's family seems to have some business, good business, right? So every day when he returns from school, Peter watches his uncle taking care of their sheep. Their shipyard is situated on a wide grassy plain with hills in the far distance. So whenever Peter returns from his school, he sees that his uncle is busy with the ships, doing various activities, taking care, feeding, nurturing them, and so on. And they have got a very big shipyard, which is situated on a wide grassy plain, you can say. And at the end of that plain, there are some hills where you can say that Peter's land exists, or this is the huge plain which is owned by Peter for their ship rearing. It is managed in a scientific way using the latest technology. Peter's family also grows vegetable through organic farming. So Peter's family, they are rearing sheep, so they also use some scientific techniques so that they can take care of their ships in a very good fashion. Also, apart from sheep rearing, their family also grows some vegetables, that too by organic farming. Okay, so do you know what organic farming is? So organic farming means use of all fertilizers, chemicals that are required for the growth of plant, which are obtained from cow dung or vegetative matter. Say for example, the dung which is obtained from domestic animals like cow, buffalo, goat, and even from hens, we call it also as a dung. We also have some organic fertilizers like vermicompost, which we get from earthworms, right? Apart from this, we also have some residuals from the agricultural wastes or agricultural crops. Say for example, if you have taken a crop of wheat, all the wheat is concentrated on the topmost part of the plant, and the bottom stalk or the bottom left out plant that can be used as a organic product or organic matter which we can mix in the soil and allow the soil to decompose it, right? So these fertilizers which are obtained from either organic or vegetative matter or from animals, these are known as organic fertilizers. Okay, and using this organic fertilizers we can grow crops without use of any chemicals. So this is an organic farming, you can say, right? So these were the two basically people, or you can say boys or girls or children from two different regions of the world. One, mamba was from Tanzania and Peter was from New Zealand, right? So do you think that there is any difference in the lifestyle of this mamba and Peter due to their geographical locations, right? So if you see Mamba who is living or who is living in Tanzania, there is water scarcity over there, right? So she has to walk a huge distance. It means that the water resource is not readily available in Mamba's place. Whereas if you see Peter's place, there is a plenty of water. There is plenty. Hence, since there is plenty of water, there is plenty of grass, right? And since there is plenty of grass, they can rear sheep. Whereas in case of Mamba, since there is no water, they have to walk long distance and they can hardly rear some goats, few goats, right? They cannot have a large number of goats as like Peter. Yeah. And so the second thing is due to the water unavailability also, Mamba's father he can grow something like maize and beans, which actually requires less water as compared to Peter, whose family is growing vegetables through organic farming, right? So vegetables as compared to these maize and beans require higher amount of water. So as you can see that this difference basically in the day-to-day activities or difference in the lifestyle of these two guys is because of the unequal distribution of resources along different geographies. Okay, so this is the chapter that we will see into details like how this land, soil, water, natural vegetation and wildlife, how they are distributed across the world and what are its effect on our day-to-day life. Okay, so Mumbai and Peter stays in two different parts of world and lead very different lives. This difference is because of the difference in quality of land, soil, water, natural vegetation, animals, and usage of technology. The availability of such resources is the main reason places differ from each other. So basically, these are the major reasons like quality of land, soil, water, natural vegetation, and animals, and the use of technology. So if these resources are available in plenty, there we could say that we can develop our life like Peter. Whereas if there is scarcity of these resources, then our life would be like Mamba. Okay, so we will see these resources in details. So let us start with the first resource, that is land. So as you know that we, everyone, every human being, every plant, every animal, we all require land for sheltering, right? We cannot live on water, obviously, but the fishes do, right? So basically if you see about 70% of the earth is covered with water and hardly 25 to 30% of the land is available. Of this land, we cannot live on each and every part of the land available because of different environmental conditions. Say for example, if there is a polar region or there are continuous snowfalls, so we don't live on that land, right? So out of this total land available, human occupies very small portion of the land for his survival or for his living. So land is among the most important natural resource. It covers only about 30% of total area of the earth's surface, and all part of this small percentage are not habitable, right? So as we have seen that all this 30% is not habitable. Very small portion of this 30% is habitable, where human beings can survive and live. The uneven distribution of population in different parts of the world is mainly due to varied characteristics of land and climate. And you can see that some part of the world is densely populated and some part is rarely populated, right? So why is so? It is because whenever there are various resources available in a particular place, people would like to live in that place, so everyone will start shifting to the place where there are plenty of resources, and so these regions will become highly populated as compared to other regions where resources are scarcely available or very rarely available. So we won't prefer going and living in a place where resources are not available. Okay, so this is basically the reason, that is the distribution of resources which dictates uh, the place in the world where it would be densely populated or the place where it would be rarely populated, right? So if you see again and go back to the case of Peter and Mumba, what do you think, where would people prefer to live, whether it would be a small village in South Africa or a small village in New Zealand? Obviously we would prefer New Zealand because the resources required for day to day activities are readily available in New Zealand, right? So, the uneven distribution of population in different part of the world is mainly due to varied characteristics of land and climate. The rugged topography, steep slopes of the mountains, low-lying areas susceptible to water, logging, desert areas, thick forested areas are normally sparsely populated or uninhabited. So, if you see these desert areas, thickly forest areas, and even the snow areas where there is plenty of snow or very steep mountainous area, so it is very difficult for human being to go there and live, to basically survive because of unavailability of water in desert. You can say unavailability of vegetation for plants, sorry, for animals to live, right? So these are the areas where basically less living organisms can survive. So plains and rivers valleys offer suitable land for agriculture. Hence these areas are densely populated areas of the world. So what is the major area where most of the population is concentrated? So it is the area where there are water resources. So for example, these are basically known as plains and river valleys. Okay, so any of the river, say for example if it is moving from or flowing from one region to another, so you may have observed that all the area nearby river, either there are a lot of towns developed or there are cities. So all the cities and towns, they are developed basically around these rivers. Why? Because first thing, water is plentifully available. Second thing, with this river flowing, they bring some soil particles which are good in fertilizers, you can say, or they have good agricultural capacity. So fertile soil they bring with them when the water is flowing. So basically this underlying area which is near this river, you can say, over these areas and all these areas, so they would have deposits of fertile soil where agriculture can be done and very high production of crops can be gained. So water is available, land is fertile, so agriculture can be done, right? And this is so the ideal place for living. So throughout the world, the scenario is that all the major cities basically in the world, they are located at the bank of one or another river, right? So you may also see in your locality if there is any river and what are the villages that are developed or settled on the bank of river. Okay, so what are the uses of this land? So let us look into that. So basically if you see, this picture is from Austria, and how the area is basically densely populated, right? So land use, now let us see to the land use. Land is used for different purposes such as agriculture, forestry, mining, building houses, roads, and setting up of industries. So all these activities you may have seen. So agriculture, you already know that we require land for agriculture. Forestry, so what does it mean? Forestry means we get wood from forest, we get rare species of plants, that is various what we call some medicinal plants, or it could be some any other useful plants, like say for example it could be neem plant, or it could even be some wood that is required. We get lot of things from forest, fruits, vegetables. So these all products, they basically from the forestry. So second thing is forestry. Apart from agriculture, we require land for forestry. Third is mining. So as you all know that all the mineral ores like iron, gold, silver, aluminum, copper that we use in our day to day life, we all get them from the land, right? So mining is done deeply into the grounds, and from there the ores are removed. So this ore basically is a mixture of some oxides of metals, so they are then chemically processed in the industry and we get specific metal after processing, right? So for mining we obviously required some land. So building houses, obviously, for building house we require land. We cannot build it on the water presently nowadays. Yeah, there are some technologies through which very rugged foundations are being implemented and we can also build houses on water, but that is a very rare case, right? So we also required land for making houses. After that we require land for making roads. So if you have visited to some mountainous area, you see that the roads are very curved and they are very steep at some points. Also they are on the cliffs or they are on the mountainous region, so it is very difficult to access them, right? But on a plain land you could have seen that the roads are flat and big roads are also available. So obviously land is required for making roads. And finally, for setting up industries, right? So since we see in our nearby areas now that there are a lot of industries, so they also require huge amount of land. So these are basically the uses of land, and all these things are known as land use. So there is an activity given to you. Can you list out the different ways in which Mambas and Peters family use their land? Right. So I think this activity you can do it on yourself. I am leaving it to you. So just note down why or what activities their parents or their family carry out on their respective lands. So let us move. The use of land is determined by physical factors such as topography, soil, climate, mineral, and availability of water. So the use of land, how, on what factors will it depend? Whether it will be used for agriculture or forestry or mining or building houses or roads or for industries, right? So apart from land, if there are some other resources available, say for example if there is plenty of water, if the climate is cool or hot, whether there are any of the minerals that can be found underground, or if the topography of the land, how it is, whether it is a plain land, whether it is a plateau, whether there are hills, mountains. So all these factors apart from only land will determine what type of activity will be done on that land. Say for example if there is plenty of water, then I think agriculture can be done. If the soil, if the land is analyzed and it is found that there are some precious metals which can be mined and recovered, so that land will obviously go under the mining activity. If you see that there are some hilly regions and there is a plenty of rainfall and there are some rivers flowing, even that land can be used for developing some water dams which could further be used for supplying water for the nearby region and also setting up some hydroelectric power station, right? So the factors apart from this land that are available in that area will determine the usage of that land. So human factors such as population and technology are also important determinants of land use pattern. And all this land that is available, so finally who will be settling there? Human beings will be settling there. So as human beings will settle, they will try to bring in new technologies, and with these new technologies they will try to make better use of this land day by day. So land can also be classified on the basis of ownership. So as you see this land, basically it is either owned by some private owner or a community land. Community land means it is owned by more than one people or one community. Private land is owned by individuals, whereas community land is owned by community for common use like collection of fodder, fruits, nuts or medicinal herbs. These community lands are also called common property resources. So as you know that the land on which we build our house, that is our private land, but the land on which temples are built or garden is built, that is known as community land. Even forest in that case can be called as community land, but the forest basically it falls under the ownership of government, right? Or the forest area you can say. So these are the two types of land, private land and community land. Community land is also called as common property resources. So people and their demands are ever growing, but the availability of land is limited. So as you know that day by day the population of the world is growing, the demand of the people, that is the requirement of the people, is also growing, but the land available, that is limited, right? It is not growing. So what is happening is population is increasing, whereas the usage of land is also increasing, and land is nowadays becoming a scarce resource. The quality of land also differs from place to place. People started encroaching the common lands to build up commercial areas, housing complexes in urban areas, and to expand the agricultural land in rural areas. So what has human started? Human has started entering into common lands to build commercial areas. So the land which was initially barren land, not used, now it is used for making commercial buildings in urban areas and to expand agricultural land in rural areas, and whatever land was left over without any usage, so now that land is being brought under agricultural activity. So you can see in urban areas it is used for either setting up industries or building commercial complexes, whereas in rural areas the land is used for agriculture. Today, the vast change in the land pattern also reflects the cultural change in our society. Land degradation, landslides, soil erosion, desertification are the major threats to environment because of expansion of agriculture and construction activities. So what we are doing, we are continuously increasing agriculture, increasing commercial activities like building complexes, industries, making roads, making dams. But to some extent, these activities are also leading to the land degradation, and the effect of this land degradation are landslides can happen, soil erosion can happen, desertification, that is by continuously doing agriculture on a particular land, the fertility of the land will decrease, and after some time the land will become saline, or it will become like a desert where no further crop can be taken, and that is known as desertification. So these are the basically threats because of continuous human activities on a particular land. So we'll also see some of these in details in the upcoming points. Okay, so changes in land use over time. So here is a picture, you may see there is a small town, so you can see some small huts, uh, very sparsely populated, right? So in so much of area you see only two houses, and over here on some hilly region also you see some houses. So this is a farmer who is carrying a plug on his shoulder, so going to, say for example, farm to do some farming activity, and this guy over here he is rearing his goats. Okay, so this is a small typical village. So this is the scenario one. So what happens is, after some years the village will change to something like this. So now you can see that all the huts now they are replaced by concrete buildings, right? So you can see a two-story building, a one-story building. On this hilly region also there are some more houses now as compared to the previous case. Also, the person who was initially carrying a plug, now there is no person who is carrying plug, but yes, one of the person is using tractor. So there is development in the technology, people are moving towards more technology. Also in this case you can see that there are some electrical poles and some wirings done, so you can say that this village is now electrified, whereas in the previous case this village it rarely had any access to electricity. Yeah, but now due to the development there is addition of electricity into the village, and so villagers can now enjoy the benefits of this electricity. So after some years, again the scenario 2 will change to scenario 3, right? So what has happened? See, the area which was initially very sparsely populated, you can say, is now densely populated. The building heights has started increasing, right? Why? Because the area available for construction is same, but the population is increasing. So instead of one story, now it will be two story, three story, five story, and so on. And so you can see that initially there was some farming activity done over here, but here there is no farming activity. The land is just left barren. All the roads that were initially of mud roads are now converted into concrete or cement roads, right, or asphalt roads you can say. So this area which was initially a hilly region is now completely developed into some societies. So there are some good street lamps, there are transportation facilities. So you can say that now this village scenario has almost changed to some developing city, right? And if you see after some years again, there is a huge change in this scenario. So now you can see that none of the house is one story or two story. Each and every building, it is a complex of at least 5 or 10 story building. Because of increased population, you can see that initially there were only few vehicles and the road was also not too wide, but now you can see that the road is now very wide with street lamps on the road. There is density of vehicles has increased on the road. Also you can see over here there is a flying aeroplane, right? So now initially there were no vehicles, here some vehicles were added, here roads were being added, and in this case you can see even the villagers now can take the facility of air transport, that is they can travel with air facility. So this is how the development occurs in any of the region. You may also have seen in your nearby region how the land use has changed with respect to time. Okay, and so if you can observe that this area which was under agriculture, now it is reserved for or converted into garden. Okay, yeah. So this was about the usage of land, and so now we'll move to the next point, that is conservation of land resources. So looking at all these pictures, do you think that the land conservation is required or it is not required? What is the importance of this, right? So you should think of land conservation. Okay, hopefully you would have thought of land conservation, how it is to be done, or what if we don't do land conservation, right? So now let us look into more details. So growing population and their ever growing demand has led to a large scale destruction of forest cover and arable land and has created a fear of losing these natural resources. So what has happened is, due to the growing population and since the population is growing, their demand for food, clothing, shelter, that is increasing, and this is leading to destruction of forests. We are cutting forest either for building houses or for agricultural activity, and this has created a stress on resources, because since you are clearing forests, the forest cover is reduced, the plants that initially used to take up the carbon dioxide or eat the carbon dioxide, their capacity is reduced because you are reducing forest. Also the animals initially that were living in the forest, so they don't have shelters to live since we are cutting down the forest. So what will happen, these animals now they will start entering into the living areas where human beings have built their houses. Okay, therefore the present rate of degradation of plants must be checked. What should be done? Government should take action on plant cutting. No one should be allowed to cut a plant, and in case if the plant is cut, every plant, when it is cut, a new plant should be planted, right? So afforestation, land reclamation, regulated use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, and check on overgrazing are some of the common methods used to conserve land resources. So how can we conserve the land resource? By afforestation. Afforestation is against deforestation, sorry. So deforestation, in deforestation what we do, we cut plants. So in afforestation we actually plant more and more trees. So land reclamation means the land which was initially not under any activity, so now that can be either brought under the agricultural activity or that can be used for planting some new trees, so that is known as land reclamation. Regulated use of chemicals and pesticides means we should not use plenty of medicines, plenty of chemicals in the agriculture. Rather we should use the amount that is only required for a particular crop, because what will happen, excessive use of these chemicals and fertilizers, what they will do, basically these chemicals and fertilizers, when they are sprayed on any of the crop, the crop will eat up whatever is required, but the rest will fall on the ground or on the soil. And day by day, since we are using more fertilizers, more of the chemicals will be settled on the ground and the land will become infertile. So that should be prevented. We should use limited chemicals and fertilizers. And we should also not do overgrazing. Overgrazing should be not allowed, because see, if the plants are small and all these plants are eaten up by sheep or bullocks or oxes or goats, any of the domestic animals that we rear, then these plants will not grow and there won't be any further vegetation available for these animals only, right? So overgrazing should not be allowed. And so in this way we can do some land conservation. So first, now let us move to the next point, that is soil. So I think we can start with this soil in the upcoming lecture. So hopefully I understand that you would have understood the concepts that we have seen today. So please go through the concepts that we have seen today. Read the textbook. If you have got any questions, or if you have not understood any of the concept, please write down in the comments and I'll be happy to reply to your comments. So we will start with the soils in the next class. So till then, thank you, and please do subscribe our channel if you have not subscribed, and do visit our channel on regular basis so that you can get updates on the new lectures. Thank you.